So the Philadelphia 76ers here on NBA schedule release day just got some great news. What is that great news? We're talking about that on today's Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. Chase Senior here with you. Hope all of you out there having a great week as we approach the weekend. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel as we're closing in on 20,000 subscribers, as you can see here to my right. If you want to stay updated on all things Sixers year-round and you want some coverage that is informative, entertaining, insightful, that involves you, the Sixers fan, then hit that sub button right now. Some important dates for the NBA schedule and 76ers schedule. Let's start there. Regular season does begin for the 2024-2025 campaign on August 22nd. The NBA trade deadline, Philadelphia could be active. The deadline, February 6th. The All-Star break, hopefully Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are partaking this year. Paul George as well. February 14th all the way through February 19th. The All-Star break has gotten a little bit longer over time. LeBron James certainly an advocate for that. April 13th, the regular season does conclude. The play-in tournament. Hopefully Philadelphia is not in that again. That would be a disaster. Running from April 15th to April 18th. And then the NBA playoffs get underway April 19th. One day before 420. Nice. Opening night for Philadelphia. We talked about this earlier this week, and that's another reason why you subscribe to the channel, because we keep you in the know with all things Sixers. It's going to be against the Milwaukee Bucks for the second consecutive year. Last year, Philadelphia had to go on the road to play Milwaukee. This year, this game between two Eastern Conference heavyweights is going to be at the Wells Fargo Center in South Philadelphia. Going to be broadcast on ESPN. We'll do a watch party for that game right here on the channel, and tip-off is set for 7:30 p.m. Eastern and 4:30 p.m. out on the West Coast. Last year, Milwaukee 49-33. Philadelphia, pretty good year as well. Last year, the Bucks did win that game in a thriller, 118-117. That dagger Damian Lillard three. Just the backbreaker in that ball game. And we got an early glimpse at what Nick Nurse could do, the receipts and the benefits of him being the head coach for this team. We certainly saw that throughout the year. Unfortunately, Joel Embiid did go down last year, which really impacted the Sixers' win-loss record, but you saw some flashes from Kelly Oubre and Tyrese Maxey, and as we know how the season ended for Philadelphia, first-round playoff exit against the New York Knicks. Hopefully this year it's different, because this Sixers team is loaded, and I think they're better than the Bucks. Who do you think comes out with the victory on opening night for the NBA season? Type PHI for the Sixers, MIL for the Bucks. I'm going with the Sixers to get the victory over Giannis and Dame in front of the home crowd. So the opening schedule for Philadelphia is part of the great news that Philadelphia has received today. Why is that? They have a roster that has a bunch of new roster construction. You're bringing in Paul George. You now have this big three of Paul George, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey. It's going to take a little while for them to understand how each other maneuvers on the court, their strengths, their weaknesses, what they like, what they don't like, all the nuances of basketball. And the good news here for Philadelphia is that they get to ease in to the 2024-2025 season. They begin opening schedule October 25th, Toronto at 7 o'clock, October 27th, against Indiana, October 30th against Detroit, November 2nd against Memphis, and then November 4th against the Phoenix Suns. Of course, that coming after Philadelphia takes on the Milwaukee Bucks. So you start off with the difficult game, and then you're able to ease into things a little bit, Chip. Some great news being able to start off relatively easy. Once you get past that first game, you can work off the adrenaline of that opening ball game, and then you get some easy opponents in which hopefully cakewalk into some victories.
Yeah, we talked about it and you touched on it. It's going to be important for this team how they start the season. We know there's going to be some ups and downs as they integrate all these new pieces into their lineup. Of course, Paul George being the main one, but the whole roster, top to bottom, very, very different. So it's going to be important as they start the season to get a few wins under their belts. They don't start to fall behind. So Toronto should be somewhat of a layup, as well as Detroit, two teams you expect to be near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Obviously, Milwaukee will be a tough one opening night. But Indiana, they're a very solid team. Obviously made an Eastern Conference Finals run, but certainly not a powerhouse, I would say. There's definitely, better teams that could be out there. Memphis is a wild card. We'll see how they are this year.
For sure.
Team that's been good in the past. Last year, bit of a tumultuous year with Ja coming off the suspension, then getting injured, dealt with a lot of injuries. So we'll see what that team looks like early on. They could have some struggles as well to start the season as they get back in the swing of things. And then the Phoenix Suns obviously have that top-end talent, but we don't really know what we're going to get from Phoenix this year as a team that was very, very inconsistent. Obviously, KD, D-Book, Beal, but not a lot of depth. So you don't have to take on, a team like the Celtics, Nuggets, Thunder early on here. So if you can start off these first 6 games or so, getting a few wins under your belt, that could set the tone for the rest of the year as, again, this team looks to ease into things to start off the season.
No doubt. Hopefully you get that wiggle room, that buffer zone. Maybe you don't play as well, but you still are able to come out with the victory. Sometimes that doesn't happen against quality teams across the NBA. You kind of get the gist there. As for some other key elements of this schedule and key storylines, Paul George's return to the Clippers, that will be on Wednesday, November 6th. That game at 7 p.m. on ESPN at Intuit Dome, and that's going to be a notable game on national television. Clippers electing not to re-sign Paul George. They did bring back James Harden, a game between two teams who figure to be factors in the East and the West. The 76ers NBA Cup schedule, we talked about this earlier this week, November 12th against the Knicks. That game at 7:30, a rematch of that epic first-round series, which I thought throughout the duration of the NBA playoffs earlier this spring and summer, that was the best playoff series that we saw in the East and the West. I mean, every game was close to storylines there, the intense crowds, two monster logos and mega media markets. November 15th, a tough game against Orlando. That's a team that's ascending right now, and they bring in a quality player like KCP. November 22nd, Brooklyn Nets, and then December 3rd against the Hornets. So Knicks, Orlando to start the NBA Cup schedule. 2 difficult games between 2 quality teams in the Eastern Conference. And then Brooklyn, Charlotte. Those should be some easy victories. The Sixers will once again play on Christmas as well. And this game against Boston, 2 heavyweights in the Eastern Conference, will take place 5 p.m. Eastern on ABC at TD Garden. So Philadelphia going to be spending their Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in Boston. We know that the Celtics have owned Philadelphia. Sixers have not beat the Celtics in a playoff series since the 1980s. The defending champs returned pretty much everybody from that team that won the NBA title last year in hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy, and they serve as the biggest mountain that the Sixers have to climb over, get over, and overcome in the Eastern Conference. The other NBA games on Christmas, you have Spurs, Knicks, Victor Wembanyama getting some national exposure. Minnesota, Dallas in a rematch of the Western Conference Finals. You have Philadelphia and Boston, which could be an Eastern Conference Final preview. Lakers, Warriors. LeBron James takes on Steph Curry. Both of them magical and tremendous during Team USA's run to the Olympic gold medal. And then Denver, Phoenix, 2 heavyweights in the Western Conference. So 76ers, Celtics, these are all the matchups throughout the 2024-2025 campaign that will take place. First matchup between Boston and Philadelphia, great rivalry. Christmas Day, Christmas night, as I said. And then they next play on February 2nd in Philadelphia. That game on ESPN. February 20th on TNT. And then March 6th on TNT. So every regular season matchup between Philadelphia and Boston will take place on national television. That's justified. That is deserved. Sixers-Knicks. This is becoming a hostile rivalry as well. It hadn't been up until this past year after that first-round series because the Knicks have been inept, and they've been such a bad basketball team for so long, but they're expected to be one of the contenders in the NBA as well. Sixers-Knicks on November 12th, TNT. January 15th on ESPN. February 26th on ESPN. April 1st on TNT. A smart job by the NBA schedule makers getting all of these premier teams, star-level talent, franchise icons, big media markets, very intense and passionate fan bases for those games to be on national television. So with that, another poll question for the audience here, rocking and rolling with this on 76ers Now. Who gets more dubs this year? P for the Sixers, B for Boston, and Y for New York. Get those predictions in down below in the comment section right now. Coming up next, just around the corner, 76ers' most important stretches for their upcoming schedule, and some more great schedule news that you do not want to miss. But first, we continue to plug this Team USA World Champion shirt. You can get it today at chatsports.com/Team USA. The players were seen wearing these Nike shirts with all of their caricatures on the front of the shirt, USA in the background, after they won gold medal against France, that victory against Serbia, led by Joel Embiid, a thriller as well. Get yours today. We'll put that link down below in the show notes, in addition to being attached to the pinned comment of today's show. So right after Christmas, Philadelphia will go on a 5-game road trip. And anytime you hit the road and you go out west, you're hoping to go 3-2. You're hoping to go 4-2. It's always difficult to go out there, middle of the NBA season, and just be dominant. We'll see how Philadelphia fares here. December 28th, this road trip features Utah and then Portland. New Year's Day on the road against Sacramento. January 2nd, back end of a back-to-back against Golden State. And then January 4th, Sixers come back to the East Coast before getting to Philadelphia. They play Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. So that is a difficult road trip, starting off with Boston on Christmas Day. And then for the Sixers, we flip the page. There is a big homestand before the NBA trade deadline. And at this juncture of the season, you're trying to figure out, do we need to make a move? Are we going to stand pat? What do we need? What are the pressing needs? Should we maneuver something at the NBA trade deadline to bolster our team? Remember that whole KJ Martin contract. He could be flipped as a trade chip, so keep that in mind. That big homestand, it features some really big games that involve some fanfare, star-level talent, great teams, and a lot of hype. January 28th, LeBron James will come back to Philadelphia. We don't know how many more trips he'll make to the city of brotherly love. He's going to be 40 years old in December. January 29th, the rematch against Sacramento. January 31st, Joel Embiid against Nikola Jokic. That was a fun rivalry to watch in the Olympic semifinal. February 2nd against Boston. February 4th, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and the Mavericks come to town. And then February 5th, always a good Eastern Conference bout between Philadelphia and Miami. And then there is a massive late season road trip. At this point of the season, teams are going to be jockeying in each conference for the playoff standings. And I think that things are going to be hotly contested in the East. Road trip number 2 here for the Sixers. March 16th against the Dallas Mavericks. March 17th, back-to-back. They go to South Texas, take on Houston. March 19th, OKC, number 1 seed in the West last year. March 21st, Embiid against Victor Wembanyama. Last time they met in the NBA regular season, Embiid went off. March 23rd against Atlanta on the road, and then March 24th against the New Orleans Pelicans. So the Sixers ending the season with that road trip, but then things ease up a little bit as far as lack of travel. So they can recharge a little bit before the NBA playoffs as Philadelphia ends the season with 7 of 10 games at home. Those last 10 ball games. Wizards, Miami, Toronto, on the road against the Knicks, back home against Milwaukee, back home against Minnesota, on the road against Miami, on the road against Washington, and then 2 home games against Atlanta and against Chicago. So Chip, Philadelphia ending the season there, 7 of 10 at home. You start off with an easier schedule. You end with a lot of games in South Philadelphia. I kind of like how things have maneuvered here on the schedule for the Sixers.
Yeah, you definitely like to be playing at home as the season comes to a close. We know how tight that race in the Eastern Conference is going to be. So to be able to play 7 of 10 at home where the Sixers are historically a tough team to beat in Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center, that's obviously a very big plus. And ending the season as well, your last 3 games, Washington, Atlanta, Chicago. 3 teams that very well could be out of the race and looking forward towards the NBA draft by that point in the season. You play Toronto also in that stretch. Some tougher games, Milwaukee, New York, Miami twice. You do get Washington again twice in that last 10. So to be able to end the season again with that familiarity at home, hopefully everybody's healthy going into that last stretch. And maybe those last 3 games, you get there, you're in a decent position with your seeding, you're pretty much locked in, you're able to rest a Joel Embiid, a Paul George, as you take on, again, 3 easier teams in the Wizards, Hawks, and Bulls. But I like the way the Sixers schedule starts and the way it ends. A lot of tough stretches in there in the middle, tough road trips, a big homestand in there. But ending the season, starting the season, so very important. I think the Sixers got a good turn here with their schedule.
One more schedule note here. In total, the Sixers, among their 82 games, 27 of them will be on national television. That is tied for the 8th most among the 30 teams in the NBA. Philadelphia looking to win their first NBA championship since 1983. They have a loaded roster, iconic franchise, 4th largest media market, Daryl Morey well known, Joel Embiid much discussed, Tyrese Maxey a blossoming superstar, Paul George the biggest acquisition of this offseason for any team across the NBA. You think about the legendary players who have played for Philadelphia, to name a few: Wilt Chamberlain, Dr. J, Charles Barkley, Allen Iverson, and now the modern-day Sixers. So they draw ratings, and it's going to be fun to see this team play 27 national television games. So with that, we round out with this. How many games will the Sixers win? I'm saying for sure over 50. 58, 59 would be dope. You give me your number down below, and thanks for watching.